Hi everyone, welcome to the Foreign Fork, where we are cooking one meal from every country in the world. This week we're going a little bit out of order and we're doing something a little interesting. It's Valentine's Day tomorrow, so I am showing you a really fun Valentine's Day meal, fondue, inspired by Switzerland. So keep on watching this video and I'm going to show you the steps for how to make it. Okay, so I'm pretty lucky because I have this fun fondue pot that's sitting here on my counter. If you do not have a fondue pot, that's okay. You can still make this dish, you just have to use a pot on the stove instead. So I have my fondue pot turned up to a pretty high heat. It's like medium high heat. And I'm gonna put a little drizzle of olive oil in here. Maybe a little bit more than a little drizzle. And then I have 2 shallots that I've chopped up. So I'm gonna saute those, along with 1 teaspoon of garlic. I'm just gonna kind of mix that until they start to soften a little bit. In the meantime, while I'm waiting for this to cook, I'll tell you about my cheeses. So I have 8 ounces of grated Swiss cheese and 4 ounces of grated Gruyere cheese. So my Swiss cheese I grated on the biggest setting, my Gruyere cheese I grated on the medium setting, and that's just because the textures of the cheeses were more conducive to those particular settings. I'm gonna put my 4 ounces of Gruyere into my 8 ounces of Swiss, and then I have 2 tablespoons of cornstarch. So I'm gonna sprinkle that on here, and that is because your 2 tablespoons of cornstarch are gonna keep your cheeses from clumping when they start to melt. Get a little messy and just use my hands to kind of mix that cornstarch into the cheese combination. It's looking like our onions and our garlic are pretty much getting to a good level here. So now I'm gonna add 3/4 cups of white wine. I'm using a Pinot Grigio that I'm adding in here. I'm gonna add that right into my hot pot here, and I'm gonna let it mix it in with the garlic and the shallots until it starts to boil. It started boiling almost instantaneously. So now I'm gonna turn it down to a low heat. So just so you know, on a scale of 1 to 8, I was at a 5.5, and now I'm going down to about a 3 on the temperature levels over here. All right, so my wine is now pretty hot. I'm gonna take my cornstarch coated cheese and I'm gonna add it in a little at a time. You do not want to put all of your cheese in here at once because it'll clump up together. It's not going to melt really nicely. So I'm just going to do little handfuls of cheese. I'm going to use my spatula to mix it up until it totally melts, and then I'm going to add the next round of cheese. Okay, so it took me about maybe 4 turns to get all of the cheese melted in. And now the last thing that I need to do is add in 1/3 of a teaspoon of salt and then 1 teaspoon of ground mustard. And I'm gonna combine this as well. Even though we're not specifically on a country, there is a big history of fondue in Switzerland. Switzerland is where fondue originated. It's still a really popular winter meal in Switzerland. People eat it all year round, but it's normally the tourists that eat fondue. So the reason that fondue originated in Switzerland was because in their really harsh winters on the tops of the mountains, it was often hard to find a lot of fresh food. And so in order to prepare for the winter, they would take cheese and they would keep the cheese, and they would have some stale bread. And in order to make a full meal out of those 2 very common ingredients, they would melt the cheese and then dip the stale bread into the cheese, and that would soften up the bread a little bit and make it easier to eat. And then that would be a full meal for a full family around the fireside in the mountains of Switzerland. So that's the originations of fondue. I did get to have some fondue when I went to Switzerland, and it was the best meal ever. Now that our spices are loaded in, you can dip whatever you want in your fondue. So you can do apples, pretzels, carrots, celery. My favorite is, of course, the traditional bread. So I got some sliced French baguettes from my grocery store. They came pre-sliced. You can do whatever you want, but all you have to do is take a fondue spear if you have one, or a fork if you don't, or your fingers, and you dip in the cheese. Oh no, I might lose my bread in the cheese. There we go. There we go. Look at those strings. Right now, The weather is getting cold and stormy and snowy in Michigan, and this is the perfect way to cuddle up nice and warm, have a delicious, cozy, and romantic meal on Valentine's Day or any other day of the year. Thank you for watching. This recipe is going to be posted on my blog, www.fourandfork.com, with the full written instructions and ingredients, so you can check it out there. And don't forget to stay tuned for all the other videos on my channel for different meals from every country in the world. Thanks, you guys.